There is a pattern buried so deeply in your behavior that you almost never question it. A pattern that feels normal, even logical, because it's the way you were taught to approach every goal in your life. You've been conditioned to move toward what you want to push, to reach, to chase, to create strategies and mentally stretch yourself into the future. But here's the paradox nobody ever taught you. In the quantum world, moving toward your desire pulls it further away. Pushing creates distance. Chasing generates resistance. And the harder you try, the more you reinforce the frequency of not having. This isn't a motivational metaphor. It's physics. When you place your focus on what you want but feel the absence of it inside your body, the field receives the absence, not the desire. You're manifesting backward. And once you understand how to flip this direction, everything accelerates.
There is a pattern buried so deeply in your behavior that you almost never question it. A pattern that feels normal, even logical, because it's the way you were taught to approach every goal in your life. You've been conditioned to move toward what you want, to push, to reach, to chase, to create strategies, build images, analyze steps, and mentally stretch yourself into the future. But here's the paradox nobody ever taught you. In the quantum world, moving toward your desire pulls it further away. Pushing creates distance. Chasing generates resistance. And the harder you try, the more you reinforce the frequency of not having. This isn't a motivational metaphor. It's physics. When you place your focus on what you want but feel the absence of it inside your body, the field receives the absence, not the desire. The universe doesn't respond to the thought, "I want this." It responds to the emotional reality beneath it. And if the emotional reality is, "This isn't here yet," you've already set the direction of the manifestation backward. You're sending the universe the exact opposite signal of what you think you're asking for. Most people imagine manifestation as a forward motion, a kind of energetic leaning toward the future. But the quantum doesn't move in straight lines. It moves through resonance, through coherence, through identity. This means that the future doesn't come because you reach for it. It comes because you stop signaling the distance between you and what you want. But for most people, every visualization, every affirmation, every attempt at manifesting only reinforces the gap. The desire points forward, but the emotion points backward. And the backward signal wins every time. If this sounds abstract, think of it this way. Your nervous system is a translator between your inner world and the field around you. It doesn't speak English. It doesn't understand goals. It only understands safety and threat, expansion and contraction, coherence and incoherence. When you want something badly, but your body tightens with anxiety, longing, impatience, or self-doubt, the nervous system interprets the desire as a lack of safety, and it contracts. That contraction broadcasts a frequency of not ready, not aligned, not now. And the universe listens to the contraction, not the desire layered on top of it. This is why you can want something for years and still feel stuck. Because wanting is not the vibrational cue the universe responds to. Wanting is often a declaration of separation. It carries the imprint of distance, lack, and forward strain, all of which tell the field that the reality you desire is not your present identity. The desire itself is innocent. The state you enter while wanting is what creates the inversion. Neuroscience explains this beautifully. The brain's predictive models are built from emotional memory. If you try to create a future that your nervous system has no emotional reference for, the brain automatically predicts the past instead. This prediction shapes your physiology, your attention, your emotional tone. Even if you're imagining abundance, the body might still be quietly referencing the emotional memory of scarcity. Even if you're imagining love, the body might still be referencing the emotional memory of disappointment. The image points forward, the emotional memory pulls backward, and the field responds to the pull. What makes this inversion so tricky is that it feels like effort. It feels like you're doing everything right. You visualize daily. You repeat affirmations. You set intentions. You push yourself into optimism. But underneath all that effort is a subtle tension, a gripping, a reaching, a sense that you must close the gap through force. This tension is the signal the field receives, and tension always manifests more tension. The quantum field doesn't reward effort, it rewards coherence. It isn't moved by intensity, it's moved by alignment. And alignment is not a forward action, it's an inward state. You don't collapse reality by pushing your energy toward a future you don't yet feel. You collapse reality by embodying a state that no longer needs to reach. This is the part almost nobody understands. Manifestation happens when the direction of creation flips from outward to inward, from effort to identity, from wanting to being. In the comments, drop one thing you've been reaching for that you're ready to stop chasing. Maybe it's clarity, maybe it's abundance, maybe it's love, maybe it's something uniquely yours. Let that word be a small but profound declaration, a signal you send not just in this space, but into the quantum field itself. Spiritual traditions have been whispering this truth for centuries in different forms: surrender, acceptance, stillness, emptiness, presence. These weren't instructions to become passive, they were instructions to stop creating vibrational friction, to stop amplifying the emotional gap between you and the life you're trying to manifest, to flip the direction of your energy so the universe can finally register what you're actually ready for. If you look closely at your life, you'll realize that the moments where things came easily, the job, the relationship, the opportunity, were moments where you weren't chasing anything, you weren't trying to create, you weren't pushing your energy forward. Something in you softened. You felt whole, neutral, open, and in that state, the future moved toward you. This is the foundation of the shift you're about to make. A shift away from manifesting backward, away from effort, toward receptivity, away from wanting, toward alignment, away from mental pursuit, toward embodied signal. This is the moment you stop doing it the hard way. It's strange to realize that the harder you try to manifest something, the more you reinforce the frequency that keeps it out of reach. You may think your desire is pulling you forward, but inside your system, a very different message is being sent. Every time you push, every time you strain, every time you mentally chase a future you don't yet feel, your body interprets that effort as evidence that the future is far away. And because your body is the real broadcaster of your vibration, the quantum field mirrors that emotional distance with precision. You end up creating more of the very state you're trying to escape. This is the backward loop, the invisible mechanism that makes manifestation feel exhausting. It's not your fault. You were taught that wanting something intensely would draw it closer, that focusing harder would strengthen the signal, that visualizing more vividly would speed up the outcome. But in energy work, the rules are inverted. Intensity amplifies lack. Effort amplifies scarcity. Wanting amplifies distance. The more urgently you try to bridge the gap, the more deeply your nervous system believes the gap is real. The backward loop begins in the body long before it reaches your thoughts. When you long for something, your breath becomes shallow. When you fear it won't happen, your diaphragm tightens. When you overthink your desires, your chest closes subtly and barely noticeable, but powerful enough to shift your field. Your nervous system enters a state of seeking, scanning for danger, scanning for missing pieces, scanning for the future like a threat it can't track. In this physiological state, no matter how beautifully you visualize, your broadcast is one of lack, and the universe mirrors lack with mathematical accuracy. What happens when you desperately want clarity about your path? The more you try to mentally force an answer, the more confused you feel. Because clarity doesn't come when the mind tightens. It comes when the body softens. The backward loop hijacks this softness and replaces it with effort. It convinces you that thinking harder will solve the problem, when in reality, your nervous system is collapsing into old survival patterns that block the very insight you're seeking. Neuroscience explains this as predictive bias. When your emotional baseline signals threat, your brain filters reality through the lens of what's missing. It notices absence more than presence. It magnifies delay. It amplifies uncertainty. And because your attention shapes your perception, and perception influences your vibration, your entire field broadcast shifts toward the emotional memory of not yet. This is how timelines stagnate. Not because the universe is slow, but because the nervous system is broadcasting backwards. On a quantum level, this backward pull is even more profound. The field responds to frequency, not intention. When your frequency says, "I don't have it," the field doesn't judge that statement as negative. It simply mirrors it. It aligns you with a version of reality where the desire remains ahead of you, forever slightly out of reach. This is why some people feel like their dreams stay one step away. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just manifesting from the wrong direction. Spiritual teachings describe this backward pull as attachment, craving, or grasping. But these words often sound moral or philosophical, when in truth they describe a biological and energetic phenomenon. Grasping is simply the body contracting around a desire it doesn't feel ready to receive. Craving is the nervous system clinging to a timeline it doesn't yet have the capacity to embody. Attachment is the emotional memory of lack, masquerading as desire. None of this makes you wrong. It makes you human. But when you understand the backward loop, everything changes. You begin to notice the moments when your energy is reaching outward instead of settling inward. You notice when your desire becomes urgent instead of aligned. You notice when your thoughts start forcing a future your body doesn't feel. These small observations create micro breaks in the loop, and each break gives you a moment of choice, a moment to soften, breathe, release the forward strain, and flip your internal direction. This flipping is powerful. The instant you stop reaching, the tension dissolves. The moment the tension dissolves, the signal clears. And as the signal clears, the field no longer receives the broadcast of, "I don't have it." Instead, it receives neutrality, and neutrality opens the door for the future to move toward you. If you can feel this truth resonating inside you right now, if you're recognizing the ways you've been manifesting backward without realizing it, then anchor that awareness in a way the field can recognize. Type in the comments, "I release the backward pull," not as a technique, not as a mantra, but as a declaration that you're ready to stop manifesting against your own energy. Because once you break the backward loop, even slightly, you create space for the future to finally come forward. If this resonates with you, hit subscribe and click the bell icon next to it. Also, join our manifestation club on gogetter.au. This isn't just a channel. This is a frequency. If you felt something shift while watching, you're already tuned in. We're not just consuming content here. We're reversing the direction of manifestation itself. Let's keep evolving together. At a certain point on this path, you start to realize that manifestation is not about doing more. It's about reversing the direction from which you're doing everything. The reason your desires have felt far away is not because they're difficult, not because you're unprepared, not because the universe is slow, but because your energy has been moving in the wrong direction. You've been projecting outward instead of stabilizing inward. You've been trying to reach the future instead of becoming the version of you the future naturally gravitates toward. And the moment you flip this internal direction, the entire structure of your timeline begins to rearrange. This flip is subtle, but when it happens, you feel it immediately, not as excitement, but as a quiet shift inside your chest. Your breath deepens without effort. Your awareness widens without intention. Your emotional center stops leaning forward. It starts resting into itself. The inner gripping releases, and in that release, you stop vibrating with the frequency of distance. You begin vibrating with the frequency of presence, and presence is the only signal the universe can respond to instantly. The flip principle is simple, but it's not something the mind can force. It happens through the body first. The body is the gateway because it's the only part of you that can collapse emotional predictions fast enough for the field to register a new identity. When your body shifts, your entire vibrational signature rearranges. Here's how the flip works. First, you notice the forward tension, that subtle internal reaching that feels like your energy is leaning out of your body, stretching toward a future moment. It's so habitual that you rarely catch it. It shows up as a slightly raised chest, a shallow inhale, a micro tension around the sternum, or the feeling of trying even when you're calm. This forward tension is the engine of the backward loop. The moment you notice it, the loop begins to lose power. Second, you bring your awareness back into the body, not to fix anything, but to simply reconnect with where you're broadcasting from. You feel the weight of your ribs, the softness beneath your sternum, the back of your heart, the pull of gravity. This awareness grounds your signal. The field responds to grounded signals because grounded signals are stable enough to collapse probability. Third, you allow a micro-release, a gentle surrendering of the urge to mentally reach for anything. Not a dramatic exhale, not a deliberate relaxation, just a soft internal let it fall. This micro-release is the flip, the exact moment your energy stops projecting outward and begins resting inward. It's like reversing the flow of a river with one tiny shift of the terrain. The current changes direction without effort. Fourth, you enter the state of already aligned. This is not pretending, it's not imagining, it's not forcing a feeling. It's the natural emotional tone that emerges when the body is no longer rehearsing the past. In this state, you don't feel excitement or anticipation. You feel neutrality with depth. The kind of neutrality that comes from not needing anything to be different in order to feel whole. This neutrality is powerful because it carries no contradictions. Desire often carries contradiction. I want this, but I don't have it. Neutrality carries none. I'm here. I'm open. I'm coherent. And coherence collapses timelines far faster than intention ever could. Fifth, your identity updates. The nervous system stops predicting the emotional tone of your old life and starts predicting the tone of the life you're becoming. This is the true mechanics of manifestation. The nervous system predicts, the field mirrors, and reality rearranges around the prediction. When your prediction changes from lack to presence, the universe changes its response immediately. The most important thing to understand about the flip principle is this. You're not flipping your thoughts, you're flipping your origin point. Instead of manifesting from, I don't have it yet, you begin manifesting from, I'm already the one who receives it. And the moment your signal originates from identity instead of desire, everything accelerates. This is why the flip principle doesn't require visualization. Visualization tries to build the future. The flip dissolves the need for building. It draws the future toward you through magnetic coherence rather than mental architecture. When you flip, you become a gravitational point. You stop chasing possibilities and begin pulling them in. The field senses this instantly. Opportunities reorganize. People respond differently. Intuition gets sharper. The mind gets quieter. You feel less urgency because urgency no longer feels relevant. The flip dissolves urgency because urgency only exists when you believe the future is ahead of you, not when you feel it meeting you in the present. The irony is that the moment you stop manifesting from desire is the moment desire becomes easy to fulfill. Not because you gave up, but because you finally aligned with the version of yourself who doesn't need to chase anything. This version of you is clear, grounded, receptive, emotionally unfragmented, and creation happens through coherence, not effort. The flip principle is not a technique, it's a remembering of how creation actually works. A remembering that you are not meant to force reality, but to align with the version of you that reality naturally responds to. A remembering that your energy leads and life follows. Once you feel this flip, even once, your entire understanding of manifestation changes. It stops being a practice and becomes a state. A state where the future doesn't sit ahead of you, waiting to be reached, but rises up to meet you because you finally stopped moving in the wrong direction. In the comments, share one moment when something came to you effortlessly because you stopped chasing it. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's an opportunity, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's something uniquely yours. Your recognition matters. Your flip matters. Because you matter. There comes a moment after the flip has settled in your system where something inside you becomes profoundly still. Not the stillness of passivity, but the stillness of alignment. A stillness that doesn't come from trying to be calm, but from no longer needing to force anything. It's a quiet inner certainty that doesn't depend on logic or evidence. In this state, you're no longer manifesting backward. You've stopped reaching, stopped yearning, stopped trying to bend the timeline with mental force. Instead, you're carrying a frequency that makes the timeline bend toward you. This is the effortless path. The path where creation doesn't require tension because the body is no longer broadcasting the emotional memory of not having. Where you are no longer vibrating with the version of yourself that was trying to earn your future. Where the universe recognizes you immediately because your energy finally matches the reality you've been calling in for years. You're not chasing outcomes anymore. You're receiving responses. The most powerful part of this shift is how subtle it feels from the inside. Nothing loud happens. No emotional fireworks, no dramatic surge of high vibration. You simply stop contradicting yourself. You stop leaking energy. You stop creating internal friction. Your body is no longer oscillating between desire and doubt, between wanting and resisting, between imagining and fearing. The internal noise drops, and what remains is coherence. Coherence is the language of manifestation. When you speak this language, the universe doesn't hesitate. In this coherent state, you start noticing how reality begins responding with surprising speed. Conversations unfold in ways you couldn't have choreographed. Opportunities appear in the quiet spaces where you weren't even looking. People show up with timing so precise it almost feels scripted. And instead of analyzing these moments or trying to interpret signs, you simply feel the naturalness of it all. Like this is exactly how life was always meant to work once your energy got out of its own way. Manifestation becomes less about doing and more about allowing, less about thinking and more about sensing, less about controlling and more about receiving. You begin to trust that the future is already leaning toward you. The moment your body stops bracing against it, you start to move through life with a deeper kind of intelligence, an embodied intelligence that knows how to align your frequency without the mind needing to micromanage the process. And here's the part that changes everything. Once you stop manifesting backward, the future no longer feels ahead. It feels close, intimate, already forming. You sense its presence, the way you sense someone entering the room behind you before you turn around. It's subtle but unmistakable. You feel timelines adjusting days before anything physical happens. You catch emotional shifts that precede synchronicities. You notice a new resonance in your chest that tells you, without drama or excitement, that something is already on its way. This is the identity the universe responds to, the one that is grounded enough to receive and clear enough to be recognized by the field. An identity that doesn't depend on intensity or effort. An identity that echoes the frequency of someone who already holds the reality they once thought they had to chase. This identity is not invented. It emerges when the old identity loses its grip. Once this new identity stabilizes, you stop relating to your desires as goals. They become consequences, natural outcomes of holding a coherent vibrational state. Manifestation stops being a journey and becomes a reflection, a mirror responding to the person you're becoming. You start living in a way that makes the future obvious. You move through the world with a presence that tells the quantum field exactly where to align. And the field responds because you are no longer sending mixed signals. And if, as you're listening to this, You can feel that something inside you is already shifting, a softening, a settling, a quiet internal yes. Then trust that feeling. That's the signal. That's the beginning of the effortless path. The version of you who manifests without resistance is not far away. They're already rising through your system, already recalibrating your field, already preparing your next reality. If you're ready to deepen this identity, to embody it fully, stabilize it, and allow it to guide your manifestations with clarity instead of struggle, then you're ready for the next step of your evolution. The path becomes easier when you have a structure to support the integration, and that's exactly what the Awaken Your Quantum Power ebook and its practical companion were created for. They're not just teachings, they're tools for anchoring coherence, dissolving resistance, and shifting your identity at the level where quantum manifestation actually takes place. You'll find the link in the pinned comment. If your energy feels open, follow it. The universe always moves fastest when you stop moving in the wrong direction. Make sure you share this video with your loved ones. You might just be the blessing in disguise they need today. Remember, you're not just sharing. You're spreading the truth about directional energy and quantum alignment. And that energy will help everyone who's been exhausting themselves, chasing what was always meant to come to them the moment they stopped running.